Sexual fantasies stem from a variety of sources, including biological instincts, childhood experiences, cultural influences, and personal traumas. According to Freud, our unconscious mind harbors suppressed desires that manifest in dreams and fantasies. Jung, on the other hand, suggested that certain archetypes, such as the dominant lover, the seductress, or the submissive partner, are embedded in our collective unconscious, shaping the way we experience attraction. For instance, E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey captivated millions with its portrayal of dominance and submission. The widespread appeal of Christian Grey's character suggests that many people are drawn to the idea of control, surrender, and power dynamics in relationships. But why? The answer lies in the psychology of human desire, where authority, submission, and trust intermingle to create intense emotional and physical experiences. The role of power and control in Fantasies' power plays a crucial role in many sexual fantasies. This is not merely about dominance in a literal sense, but about the deeper psychological appeal of surrendering control or taking command. People often fantasize about scenarios that contrast with their daily lives. Someone who feels powerless in reality may find pleasure in dominant fantasies, while a highly controlled individual may fantasize about submission as a form of release. However, if left unchecked, these fantasies can create unrealistic expectations about relationships and intimacy. In the extreme, they may lead to unhealthy dependencies, addiction to explicit content, or dissatisfaction with real-world partners. This is where mastery becomes essential. Mastering sexual fantasies, a strategic approach. Robert Greene's approach to power and control in works such as The 48 Laws of Power and The Art of Seduction can be applied to mastering sexual fantasies. Instead of allowing them to control us, we must learn how to harness them effectively. Understand your fantasies. The first step in mastering desire is understanding it. Take a strategic approach. Analyze the origins of your fantasies. Are they linked to past experiences, societal influences, or unmet emotional needs? By identifying the root, you gain clarity and control over how they affect your thoughts and behavior. For example, if someone is obsessed with dominance fantasies, they should ask themselves, do I crave control because I lack it in real life? If so, rather than getting lost in escapism, they might find empowerment in asserting control over their goals and ambitions. Control indulgence. Through moderation. Greene teaches that power lies in restraint. Unchecked indulgence leads to addiction and weakness, but selective, intentional engagement with one's desires maintains both pleasure and control. Applying this to sexual fantasies, one should set limits. For instance, rather than indulging in explicit content excessively, one might redirect that energy into self-improvement, physical fitness, or creative expression, turning raw desire into productive force. Channel fantasies into reality with balance. Fantasies can be brought into reality in ways that enhance relationships without damaging them. Communication with a partner about shared fantasies fosters intimacy, but imposing unrealistic expectations can lead to disappointment. A strategic approach would be to introduce elements of fantasy in a controlled way, discussing boundaries, incorporating elements gradually, and ensuring that real-life experiences remain fulfilling rather than an impossible standard derived from fiction. Transmute sexual energy into creative and personal growth. Sexual energy is one of the most potent forces in human psychology. Instead of letting it dissipate into mindless indulgence, one can transmute this energy into ambition, creativity, and discipline, a principle emphasized in various traditions, from Taoist practices to modern self-mastery techniques. History is filled with great figures who redirected their passions into greatness. Nikola Tesla, for instance, was known for abstaining from relationships to channel his energy into scientific breakthroughs. While extreme, this illustrates the potential of controlled desire as a source of personal power. Sexual fantasies are neither inherently good nor bad. They are tools of the mind that can either enslave or empower. Like any powerful force, they must be understood, disciplined, and strategically directed. By applying principles of psychological insight and strategic control, one can enjoy fantasies without being ruled by them. The key is balance, knowing when to indulge, when to restrain, and how to convert raw desire into something far greater, whether in love, ambition, or creative pursuits. In mastering our desires, we do not suppress them, we elevate them into forces of purpose and power. Sexual fantasies are an undeniable part of human nature, but mastery over them requires deeper understanding, discipline, and strategic application. In the first part of this discussion, we explored the origins of fantasies, the role of power dynamics, and how to harness desire rather than be consumed by it. Now, we take a step further, unpacking the neurobiology of desire, the psychological consequences of indulgence, and advanced strategies for sublimation, control, and integration. By the end of this exploration, you will not only understand the mechanics of sexual fantasies, but also possess a structured framework to master them as one would master an art, a business, or an empire. The neurobiology of desire and addiction. At the core of sexual fantasies lies a potent neurochemical cocktail: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Each plays a distinct role. Dopamine fuels anticipation, novelty, and pleasure. It is the neurotransmitter responsible for the addictive pull of fantasies, pornography, and new sexual experiences. Oxytocin fosters bonding and attachment. It can turn fantasies into emotional dependencies or strengthen relationships when used correctly. Serotonin regulates mood and satisfaction, influencing how fulfilled or restless one feels post-fantasy. Endorphins provide pleasure and pain relief, reinforcing certain behaviors and thought patterns. The problem? Overindulgence in fantasies, especially when fueled by digital stimuli, creates a feedback loop that desensitizes dopamine receptors. This leads to an increased craving for novelty, stronger stimuli, and ultimately, disillusionment with real-life experiences. The psychological trap of fantasies. Illusions versus reality. The mind is both a powerful tool and a dangerous trap. When left unchecked, fantasies create false narratives that shape perception, leading to unrealistic expectations in relationships, dissatisfaction, and even emotional isolation. Example: the Christian Grey effect. The immense popularity of 50 Shades of Grey introduced many to the appeal of dominance-submission dynamics. However, many people seeking this dynamic in reality fail to account for the emotional, psychological, and power-balancing elements necessary for such relationships to function harmoniously. Example: the digital fantasy loop. The ease of access to explicit content and digital roleplay has led many into a cycle of overstimulation, where real-world interactions feel dull in comparison. Relationships suffer because partners are measured against idealized versions from fiction, film, or digital interactions. Strategies for mastery. The Robert Greene approach. To master sexual fantasies, one must embrace discipline, detachment, and redirection, principles echoed by Robert Greene in his work on power, seduction, and mastery. Here's a practical guide. 1. Detachment from the illusion. Seeing through the fantasy conduct. A reality check on your fantasies. Which elements are grounded in genuine attraction and which are exaggerated distortions? Identify patterns. Do your fantasies follow a recurring theme of dominance, submission, rescue, or rebellion? Understanding these patterns gives insight into unresolved desires and traumas. Challenge the narrative. Ask yourself, if I were to live out this fantasy daily, would it truly fulfill me, or is its power derived from its unattainability? 2. Transmutation of sexual energy. The art of redirection. Sexual energy is one of the most potent creative forces available. The key is sublimation, redirecting that energy into higher pursuits. This concept has been employed by historical figures who deliberately transform desire into ambition. Napoleon Bonaparte redirected his obsessive passion for Josephine into military strategy, using the emotional highs and lows to fuel conquest. Nikola Tesla chose celibacy, believing that sexual restraint enhanced his intellectual capacity and focus. Modern high performers use intense workouts, business ventures, or artistic expression as outlets for sexual energy. Practical application. Replace passive consumption, pornography, excessive fantasizing, with active creation, writing, fitness, business building. Introduce physical discipline, martial arts, intense training, fasting, to rewire the brain's reward system away from instant gratification. Cultivate intellectual seduction, shift from sexual fantasy toward mastery of influence, persuasion, and personal magnetism. 3. Controlling indulgence. The law of scarcity. Robert Greene often emphasizes that power comes from withholding, not giving freely. The same principle applies to indulgence in desire. Scarcity fuels passion. By reducing access to instant gratification, you increase the intensity and value of real experiences. Set indulgence schedules. Limit engagement with explicit content or fantasy-based stimulation to controlled moments, preventing addiction and dependency. Engage in controlled abstinence. Occasional periods of celibacy or reduced indulgence increase self-control, allowing for conscious choice rather than compulsion. 4. Integration. Balancing fantasy and reality. True mastery does not mean suppression, it means integration. Communicate openly with partners about desires, ensuring that fantasy complements rather than replaces intimacy. Bring elements of fantasy into real experiences in a way that enhances connection rather than distorts expectations. Develop a seduction mindset. Instead of seeking instant pleasure, engage in the long game of attraction, deepening connection, and expanding influence. Conclusion. Becoming the master, not the slave. Sexual fantasies are a double-edged sword. They can either elevate human experience or trap individuals in a cycle of unfulfilled desire. The difference lies in control. By applying a strategic mindset, analyzing, redirecting, and integrating desire, you can transform fantasies into sources of power rather than weakness. The ultimate goal is not repression, but refinement, to channel raw impulse into ambition, attraction, and influence, mastering desire rather than being mastered by it. In doing so, you elevate not just your own life, but the quality of your relationships, pursuits, and legacy. As I comb through this subject, I cannot help but notice how many men suffer from unrealistic fantasies. We are human, so to fantasize is normal, but to be indulgent, you must be above these soul-weakening desires. Stay on the watch for my audiobook, a full hour of the divine knowledge, only for my most loyal and dedicated crusaders. Remember, we are indulgent.